Enjoy all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. Sign up using code CHAMPION and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Virginia only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-888-532-3500.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur. I apologize for that. I realized I started the theme song without going live. I was like, why am I not hearing the theme song through the Mixler browser or window? Because I hadn't gone live. But, you know, we're live now. Today is our Halloween episode, so I want to welcome, as always, Jamie. Welcome to the show.
Hello, and happy Halloween, everyone.
That's right. Happy Halloween. And we have a special guest this evening. We have Alex Edwards of the Skeleton Crew podcast. So welcome to you as well, Alex.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Now, Jamie, you do Skeleton Crew as well. Is that right? Were you guest on? Yeah.
No, that's Alex is my co-host, and tomorrow we're dropping our 100th episode.
Whoa.
Tomorrow, Friday on Halloween. We're dropping our 100th episode.
Yep.
Now, what do you have planned for the big 100?
Well, it's a lot of it's a lot of fun stuff, a lot of clips from the previous 99 episodes or however many, and us just reflecting back on 100 because it's also it's the end. We said we were going to end at 100, so.
Oh, so this is it?
You know.
The Skeleton Crew is done after this, or?
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, it's the the big wrap up. We went 100, went strong for a while, and this month was tough on all of us. We went really hard this time, and big grand finale. It's going to be a gigantic show. We always said we're going to do 100, and see what's going to happen from there. So, this is it. So.
Wow, I didn't. So that's it. So, when did the podcast start? When was the first episode?
April 2, 2012.
So 2.5 years, a 2.5-year run.
Yep, long run. A lot of changes throughout. When Jamie hopped on, the show got a lot better. She came in 2013, January, and the show just, went to another level, and everything just kept snowballing. Got a lot more people listening and had a lot more fun. And, it's just the only reason we would leave is just very, very tough and time-consuming to do all the production and behind-the-scenes preparation and things like that. It's just a lot goes into it. The off-air stuff is a little bit tedious, so it's just the way to do it. Yeah.
Now I can attest to what it means to have Jamie added to a show. How well that adds to, because the same thing for me with the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur podcast. Once Jamie agreed to be my co-host full-time, it has been, we haven't looked back since. We've had great shows ever since, too. So I could totally attest to how that would change the quality of a show.
Yep.
Aw, you can't see it, but I'm blushing right now. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I mean.
You can hear it. You can hear the big grin on my face. That's sweet of you.
Yeah, so now what are your plans, both of you? You have, I know, Jamie, you have plenty of other podcasts that you do. How about you, Alex? Do you have other shows that you do?
Just one. Different horror podcast. I joined. I don't know exactly when. Remember, Jamie? It was like sometime in the summer. There's season 2.
I don't remember when the official beginning was. Maybe August, or was it before that?
It seems like maybe June, July.
Oh,
I know. It was supposed to be July 4th, but it was like 5 days before that is when I joined it. And the reason I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Why wasn't it July 4th? Is because the first movie we reviewed was Shining. So I said, that picture at the end when it says July 4th and that party that they're all at, how could we not release this on July 4th just for, connection purposes? And so that means definitely it was like 5 days before July 4th. So I've been there since then, and I'll probably hang for the whole season until the next June, whatever point. Oh, and
And
it's
that's been
called Banana Laser. No, I forgot.
yeah, and the Banana Laser was originally Dave and Matt, and they're two really great guys who have both been on Skeleton Crew a lot. And so when I found out that Alex was going to be joining them, it really seemed like a perfect fit because he's just slid right on in there with those guys, and they do a terrific show.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome. Now, I know we have some people listening in the audience. I'm noticing on my feed that the mic is going when you two are speaking. Can anybody say, is there an echo? Are you guys getting an echo out there? Just want to make sure. I know I can never tell. Like it usually I don't see too much movement, but it's possible that I've just got a fan going or something like that that's causing it. But it just seemed like I'm not seeing any indication, so it looks like we're okay. I just wanted to make sure. Well, that's cool though. I think that's cool. Ending on 100. Now I don't know, Jamie and I, we have a long ways to go with 100 here for the Direct to Video Connoisseur podcast. So somebody said, did the sound die? All right, can you hear? Brian, can you hear us? He said, did the sound die? What's going on here? Oh, all right. Jamie, can you try speaking for me? Jamie or Alex?
I can try.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right.
I don't do that very much, so I don't know if I'll be good at it.
No, you're good. Okay. Well, all right. So Brian said that the sound died. So are we not on the air, Brian? Okay, and we're back. All right. So something happened there. All right. We'll see what happens. All right.
The beauty of live radio.
Yes, the beauty of live on Mixlr. And I had a feeling, something wasn't right about Mixlr tonight when I got on. And, maybe it's, maybe it is. This apartment is an old apartment. It's possible that, Mr. Pritchard is lurking somewhere telling me that there are ghosts here that are...
There's nothing you can do about it.
That's right. I should maybe warn Jen not to open any chests or anything like that because she might find some frozen or thawing Neanderthal heads somewhere. some icemen thawing. So we won't do that.
Yeah, my personal theory is that it's a haint.
It's yes. Right. What the head?
No, our show is hainted.
It's that could be. That could be. Well,
That's Southern.
Hainted is Southern.
Yeah.
Hainted.
Hainted.
Hainted. A hainted house. Alright. Well, today's film is House on Haunted Hill, and now of course the thing with this movie is it was remade, in the early 2000s, kind of in that I don't know what was that movement that we could call it, that sort of that movement that happened there in the mid 2000s where it was like or the early 2000s where they, after Scream and all that, where they just wanted to make movies with kids in situations and they were remaking old horror movies. Did I say House on Haunted? Oh, House on Haunted Hill. Okay. But you know what I mean? It was kind of like the remake was in that mold, and they, I think they did House of Wax. They did a few around that time. But we're talking about the original here tonight because I just why talk about that new one? That's just a mess. But
Jeffrey Rush was good.
He was. I was telling Jen about that. Yeah, so at least we had Jeffrey Rush. Taye Diggs wasn't.
No, I was just saying that I actually used to watch the remake quite a few times. In 1999, when I think it came out, I was 19. And at that time, I wasn't really horror savvy with all what the good stuff is, and I was just watching whatever was around, whatever came out at the time. So to me, horror was like The Faculty, Disturbing Behavior, the remake House of Haunted Hill, and I wouldn't give horror much thought at the time. And so I've watched this quite a few times, but I noticed that when I did get into horror in 2000, 2001, I never really revisited this movie, and so it's been 13 years, I guess, since I saw the remake of House on Haunted Hill. But so I wouldn't even know how it would sit with me these days, but back then it was okay.
How about you, Jamie? What were your thoughts on either of the two? The original or the new one? Did you see the new one?
Oh yeah, I saw it, and that's pretty much what I remember taking away from it was Jeffrey Rush.
Yeah.
You know, Jeffrey Rush was a good example of someone who could pull off a part that was originally played by Vincent Price. I was happy with that. I love him as an actor in anything, so I was really happy with his performance. But there were 3 remakes that came out right around that time. It was this one, and 13 Ghosts, and The Haunting. And I don't really care for any of them. Actually, the one I've watched most recently was The Haunting, and that one starts out pretty strong, but then all the CGI starts creeping in, and it's really bad, and it just sort of ruins the whole thing. I think it just completely takes away from the atmosphere. So I wasn't really into all of those. It's probably been about that long since I've seen the remake of this one as well. As far as the original, that's just a damn good movie. I love it. I mean, it's Vincent Price. I really can't complain about anything that Vincent Price does. I love him. I just recently watched his induction into the Horror Hall of Fame from 1990. There was a whole award show that was hosted by Robert Englund, and they inducted The Exorcist and Forey Ackerman and Vincent Price and all these, like Alien and all the classics. And when Vincent Price was giving his acceptance speech, I just bawled, because mainly because he's not with us anymore, but then also because he got it. Like, he really understood what horror was and how important it was. And even though at that point he wasn't active really, his heyday had been generations before, he still was able to connect with present day horror and the way it was at the time. And I just thought that spoke volumes about who he was, because he was completely dedicated to the genre. So anyway, so films like this, the one we're about to talk about, I love them for that reason, because they're steeped in it, and that was a really important time.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this with Jen last night, and we were both, there was a part of us that was kind of like, we were poking fun at it, we were making jokes about things, because why not? But then of course there's that other part of it where you're just, of course, like you said, like Jen made a point that sometimes the horror movies back then were scarier than horror movies today, and they were a little more gruesome in some ways. And this, I think, showed it in some ways, especially compared to that remake. But, this movie, Vincent Price, of course, sells it as the scary guy. But there's just so much going on in this film that is just perfect scary. Oh, Brian Simmons is giving us a question mark. Does that mean he can't hear us? Or does that mean we're not making any sense?
Who knows? I don't know.
Silent again? Oh, don't say silent again. We're speaking. Can you hear us?
What is happening? That is so bizarre. It's Alex's fault.
I wonder if what happened was maybe I needed to be the one to initiate the Skype call. I don't know.
But you did.
No, I think did Alex call? I don't know how that worked.
I called your group, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that does it. I don't,
Want me to hang up and you call me back?
No, he said we're back. We're back. So maybe we're just going to be in and out tonight. We'll see what happens.
Maybe Mixler's just being a dick.
It might just be that Mixler's having trouble. Yeah, and we'll find out. Okay, we can hear you now. Perfect. Thank you, Brian. Brian, you are our ears on the ground tonight. You are our
He's like Chopper Dave.
Exactly. Chopper Dave, give us the lowdown on what's going on here. So if you can't hear us, yeah, we're going to need that input. But there's parts of this movie that the whole thing between Vincent Price and his wife is just very creepy.
I love their exchanges, though.
Yeah.
They have, while we were watching this, I turned to Brian. I'm like, I hope one day our relationship can be that strong. And he's like, what, you want us to try to poison each other? Obviously, I was kidding.
Yes.
But it's just the way that they just throw barbs at each other the entire time it's humorous. But it's just like when you have Vincent Price in that role, and he's basically, he's pouring wine, and she's like, I haven't poisoned it. And he's just like, oh, well, considering you've already tried to do that. Basically, she tried to poison him with arsenic earlier. And I mean, it's just, they have this really tension-filled relationship, filled relationship, and it added so much to their characters. I just enjoy watching the two of them.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. What was it, arsenic on the rocks? I love that
Yes,
line from the
yes.
film. Yes. Alex, how about you? What were your thoughts on this one, especially in light of having started with the origin or the remake before it?
I'm not really sure if I started with the remake before. I might have seen this, just growing up. But no, to me, this was always a great movie. I mean, since day one, because I'm really into haunted houses, and I feel like I never really get a movie that is fulfilling that way. Like, it's really few and far between to ever see a haunted house movie that's done well. And the only two that really stick out to me are this and the movie House from 1986. Like, to me, those are what I imagine when I think of a haunted house movie. So, this one's kind of funny though because it seems like a genuine haunted house, but then it's sort of revealed to be disingenuine at the end, and it's kind of weird because there are some things that just don't add up, even when you try to like figure out, wait, was this really a haunted thing, or was this real, or if these guys were doing this, how did that even happen? How was she hovering out the window? Like I don't even understand like a lot of stuff that's going on in the movie, but yeah, I mean, to me, this was always like something to definitely own, something to watch on a at least bi-yearly basis. Always a favorite of mine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I this is one of those movies that I can never remember when by the time we get to the end, I can never remember. I'm going back and forth the whole time while I'm watching it, going, well, does it end up being real? Does it end up being fake? Does it end up being? I mean, and I can never remember because it's approached with, in the very beginning, you get the talking head, talking about. And then, of course, it rounds out at the end, with talking about how many people have been murdered there and all the ghosts that are there, and I love that ominous beginning with the talking head. But it's every time I watch it, I have to really watch it because I can never quite remember. But I like that. There are only a handful of movies that do that, but I love that I can't remember because it's like watching it for the first time every time.
yeah, that's for me. I haven't seen this in years. I don't remember when I saw it. So watching it with Jen, a lot of it was new for me again as well. Certain parts I remembered, and then it's kind of like when you get to the when we saw the acid when they first open up the thing and show that it's acidy. What did they drop in there? Was that a horseshoe crab or something? I don't know what that was that went into the vat, but you
Where
know,
would they get just a random horseshoe crab?
No, they got a rat. Didn't they throw a rat in there?
Yeah,
It was
like,
in a rat mouse trap, and they lifted it and
yeah,
undid the trap.
that's what Jen was saying.
horseshoe crab. What the hell?
Jen was saying it was like a rat. I was like, looked like a horseshoe crab. They just kind of found it and threw it in there. Just like grab the horseshoe crab.
Here's a question: why do they still have a pit of acid in this house? It's like, don't you think at some point somebody would have gotten rid of that?
Well, no, because Vincent Price loaded it up, right? Or
Oh, what, did he load it
I guess.
fresh?
Yeah, but who left the blood on the ceiling that was still wet?
no, was
And the
that?
woman who keeps having it drip on her, and I'm like, you know what? And she's like,
Just her.
constantly throughout the movie, it's dripping on her hand, and I'm like, you might want to move, just like when you see, and her reaction every time is so classic because she doesn't scream, she doesn't pull her hand back, she just looks down, and she's like, oh, look at that. I think if I was standing somewhere and just some random drops of blood started hitting my hand, I'd be a little bit alarmed. You
Well,
know,
that leads me to believe that on set it was probably like Hershey's chocolate syrup or something like that, and so she wasn't doing a good job of faking that it was blood. She was like, what is this chocolatey syrup?
she was just trying not to lick it, I guess.
It was more of a nuisance than anything, and so she was annoyed. But yeah, I mean, the moment I saw the vat of acid, I was like, "Oh, skeleton scene! I can't wait for that scene," and so of course then I remembered, I started remembering things as it went, but I still couldn't remember because the new movie, the new House on Haunted Hill, uses real ghosts, or I'm not saying real ghosts, but ghosts are actually a part of the story as opposed to in this film where it's all a big setup, and I know what you mean about like certain aspects of the fake ghosts, like again, like how did she hover out there, you know how did they do the thing with the rope, like how did any of that stuff work if it was all made up.
Yeah, that rope thing, that gets me every time. because I mean, how would you pull that off?
Right.
I
Like,
still don't know how you would pull that off.
I don't understand that at all. And I don't understand how, after she was out the window hovering in which seemed to be just the air out of the window, the girl runs right out of her door, right down the stairs, and she's already hanging from the ceiling again. How is that even possible?
So, yeah, I don't know unless they were using like a hologram. But did they have holograms back then? Was that a thing? I don't. They had them in Scooby Doo. I don't know if they
A hologram with a
later.
rope with a mind of its own, and a girl who's willing to stand there while it wraps around her legs.
And can I tell you too that Carolyn Craig has an amazing set of lungs on her in this film. She is screaming through the whole thing. And I even post about it on Facebook. She screams through the whole thing and I love it. She's got a fantastic scream.
Well, I have
It's-
bad
She,
news for you, Jamie.
what?
That
It was not
scream is just recycled because that
oh.
that's the first scream you hear in the very beginning. It's the same exact sound and pitch and everything. And then she does it again for the, I guess, the window or whatever, and then she does it again some other time. I think when the piano's playing or something like that.
And then there's like the scene where the hand is reaching around
Yeah.
the wall at her and she belts it out again. All right, well,
Yeah.
she had an amazing scream then. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
she
Yeah,
had
one.
one really awesome scream. It was so good they had to use it numerous times. But my favorite part about the whole movie is her reaction to everything. Because I mean, she just is. She kind of reminds me of like in Temple of Doom when I know this is gonna seem like it's going nowhere, but in in Temple of Doom and the when they're in the jungle and Indy and Short Round are playing cards and they're completely ignoring what's going on around them, and then you've got um, the woman just running back and forth screaming, just constantly. There's a snake on her. She's screaming about that. There's some kind of other wildlife. She's screaming about that. And that's what it reminds me of because every time you turn around, Carolyn Craig is just screaming about something and she's getting terrified and it's hilarious.
Well, Jen pointed out though. Jen made a really good point that well, Carolyn Craig is screaming about everything. One thing she didn't scream about was Vincent Price demonstrating that the guns were loaded, and he just fires the gun, destroys a vase, and there wasn't a peep, including from Carolyn Craig. And Jed's like, huh, that's funny that she's screaming about everything else, but she's okay with the gun just being fired at random like that. So that was something that I didn't notice it right away. But when she made the joke, I was like, yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of a tough one. And the other thing I love about her character is we've got Lance Schroeder, who Jen corrected me on my 80s TV or my TV trivia. I mistakenly said Schroeder was the handyman on One Day at a Time, but actually Schroeder plays the piano on Peanuts, and Schneider is the handyman on one.
Correct.
Yeah, I was like,
She is correct.
I had a whole set of One Day at a Time jokes lined up, and I couldn't use a single one of them with Lance Schroeder. But I was disappointed. I was able to use a lot of slick pilot jokes and a lot of creepy sexual harassment jokes on him because he does a great job of like trying to pin Carolyn Craig down there in the basement. And for his troubles, he gets treated like Fred from Scooby-Doo. He just kind of gets tossed into a room, gets hit on the head, and you were talking about Scooby-Doo. That seemed like a Scooby-Doo-esque thing to have the door shut like that. I don't know. Didn't that seem kind of Scooby-Doo-ish?
Oh yeah, and then when they find him, he's like, "I must have bumped my head," and it's like, "On what? You couldn't bump your head in here unless you ran straight into the wall, and you didn't do that, did you?" That's great. And if you recognize that guy, he was from the Big Valley. As well, I mean, he did a lot of other TV stuff too, but that was like his big. He was one of the brothers on the Big Valley. If you're at all familiar with that Western show.
I was trying to think what I saw Lance Schroeder, because I think he did a movie too that MST3K panned, and I can't remember which one it was, but he looks very familiar. He's a definite late 50s, early 60s that guy.
Oh yeah, and he's very manly looking and very classically handsome. He sticks out.
Yeah, he's just, yeah. That's the one thing that nowadays that role would be played by. I'm not going to say by. My first instinct was to say Scott Walker would play that role, and I don't want to say that now because he's out no longer with us. But 10 years ago, it would have been that kind of a guy that would have played that role, and he would have just annoyed the hell out of us. But you can have fun with a Lance Schroeder now. I think I think in the 50s, one of the things I think that helps a movie like that today is that we can get a kick out of a Lance Schroeder the way that we can't get a kick out of name it for the main character, Freddie Prinze Jr., whoever played those roles back then. It just works so much better now to have a Lance in that part.
Lance.
Well, what
And
about
then
the
there's.
big scene? Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying the big scene in the basement. I mean, him bumping his head. That's like okay, but all of a sudden you have this like lady just standing there with these white, shiny silver eyes and crazy hair in her hands, like she's gonna like attack you, and just staring like a statue. And this girl screaming in her face, and then just glides away. And then we're to believe later on that oh they're just the caretakers, and her name is Jonah Slides. Like, are you kidding me? Like, is that some kind of joke? They're like, oh, that's why she slides around. That's her name, Jonah Slides.
And
It's
she was, yeah, and she was clearly on a track. I mean,
right.
this it's like she's what kind of caretaker is that? But that I love the makeup on that. That is a really horrifying moment. I think when you first come face to face with that woman, and she's just like basically like a witch, just saying they're just like rah, and Carolyn Craig just screaming, 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 and as usual. And then they're like, well, she kind of floated. Like, no, it's more like gliding or like
Mm.
sliding. I mean, it was she just like it was like at an amusement park, like a
Right. Yeah, like a fun house that you go to.
yes, yes.
Or
And it's
airport, maybe.
She was on the moving sidewalk.
Yes, right.
and didn't it say that she's blind? Like, how would she even know to glide through the doors and go up the stair? Like, how does she even do that if she's blind?
Maybe she's really one of those really awesome blind people. I don't know. She's creepy
It's
as
just
fuck, though.
crazy. Yeah. But did you guys notice that, the setup of this movie, it moves at such a good pace and so much goes on that by the like when the caretakers leave and this whole thing starts, you're already halfway through the movie. Like that's the midway point.
I know, what is it, a 69-minute runtime, or no, 70, something like that, 74, which Jamie knows I am a stickler for runtimes. Anything over 88 minutes for me is like 90 minutes. It's pushing it. So this movie, I was like, ooh, I hit the 15-minute mark, and I've only got an hour left. Yeah, so I
Yeah,
noticed that too.
he feels like he's putting in overtime if it goes over 90 minutes, and it it's like, and every time I suggest a movie I end up suggesting something that's like 2 hours long, and then I'm like, I'm sorry.
Well, so, sometimes they're good, but sometimes they're the shooter, and we're just like, oh, what are we doing with this extra, I mean, the shooter probably should have been 74 minutes as well. But yeah, so sometimes 2 hours works, sometimes 3 hours works, but man, if you can put it all together for me in 74 minutes, I'm forever in your debt. You did a great thing. So yeah, I mean, the thing
And this one does. It moves at such a clip that it's over before you realize it has even gotten going. I mean, pretty much just I'm interested from the very moment that we begin. It's just even watching the cars ride in and getting to meet the characters. We get the little introduction to each of the characters as they're coming in. And then it just hits the ground running, and there's stuff around every corner. I never feel bored even for a second.
Oh my God! I just want to say quickly about the introductions. Jen had a great joke about that, where where we live in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, the ladies in the area, they're very gossipy. They're very like judgmental, and the way Vincent Price introduced the woman who has the gambling problem, she loses a lot of money gambling, and so Jen just kind of said it exactly like, oh, she's a gambler. She's she had a huge settlement, but she's a gambler. That's where she loses all her money. And it just felt just like that. He's just, hanging out, bridge club, telling the other ladies, or mahjong or something like that, oh yeah, she's a gambler. But, I want to say quickly about the introductions, because talking about the original House on Haunted Hill, they had to do this huge thing about them all being related or something, and some craziness with that this movie didn't do any of that, and it didn't need it. And it kind of makes me wonder why, when Hollywood movies are when they remake these old movies, why they need to put all of that other stuff in, like why it can't be as simple as this thing. You know what I mean?
I said the same thing. I was watching Rob Zombie's Halloween last night, and I said exactly the same thing because we're about an hour into the movie before anything before we catch up to the beginning of the Carpenter Halloween. And I'm like, I'm like, that was all so necessary. Let me tell you, thank you for putting in all of that extra stuff that we really didn't need. I mean, it's because the original film just jumps, like it starts where it starts, and then you move on. You don't need to know any of the backstory. You don't require it, and it's just, I'm noticing, like, oh my god, how much do we have left in this movie? Because it's just now getting started. I mean, really. And I don't know why they feel the need to flesh things out. And there's a thing today where when people remake films, they feel the need to explain everything. And I don't really think everything requires an explanation. We don't need it.
Yeah, it's the generation. It's the generation thing. Back then, simplicity, was the thing. You didn't have to have any explanation of why anyone's doing anything. And now, it seems, oh, we're at a different level now. So this has to be intricate. It's got to be interesting, and you got to know every facet of what led to here. Otherwise, you won't like it. Maybe like why? Why is that? Who said I won't like it? Just give me a good movie. It's
Right.
it's just crazy. It's crazy the approach that people have these days to movies. But real quick, to get back to the intros, my favorite one is when they're showing everybody in the car and they go to the doctor. And even as a kid, I actually believed what they said. He was describing the doctor and goes, "But don't you see a touch of greed around the eyes and mouth?" And I actually do when he says that.
Oh,
Do you think that was do you think you see it because they tell you to, or do you think you see it like the actor actually
I, I don't
has
know who to
that?
credit that to. He just does look like a greedy guy
I
who,
can totally see it too. I
yeah,
mean, I just looking at him, and then you get that impression from him throughout. And so I think they nailed it. I'm not really sure though whether I'm not really sure whether I go in feeling that and then looking for that in him because they told me to, or because the actor just sells it, or maybe the actor is greedy and it just comes off naturally. I'm not sure.
yeah, maybe.
yeah. What did he say? He said something because he was supposed to be Mr. Sophisticated Doctor, and he was like, for the most part, he was very like Mr. Sophisticated, but he said something that was like very American accent to Lance. I wish I could remember what it was. Like, did you something or did you do something? And we were just like, oh, there he is, Mr. Doctor. And the other thing with the doctor was Jen's like, he's going to either suggest a sedative for Carol's character. He's either going to try to give her one, or he's actually going to inject it. Like he's going to do it against her will. And we find out, of course, later that the whole purpose of him not administering the sedative was that they needed her to try to kill, or her to accidentally kill Vincent Price's character. But it was funny. Like we could see it coming. We see enough of these movies. They kept talking about the hysteria, which led to some Def Leppard album jokes by me. But we knew we knew the hysteria was going to lead to the sedative, and of course, and then I made a few jokes about Lance also wanting the doctor to administer a sedative so he could maybe make his move. But yeah, the doctor was a great character, and I think you could kind of, it was hard to tell going into it if he was going to play the role that he did of being potentially the one of the co-conspirators, if you will.
Yeah, I think the all what I find interesting about this is that it's a pretty much a perfect cross section of I mean, each one of those characters is representative of who they are. Even like with Nora and her running about screaming, and then Lance with his very male. I'm in charge of this kind of thing. Like, okay, for instance, the scene where he goes into her room and she's freaking out, and then he's like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to find a way out of here. I'm going to get help. And she's like, okay, I'm going with you. And he's like, no, you stay here. You're safer here than anywhere else, because if they find out you're alive, then it's going to be bad. So you're safer here than anywhere else. And she's like, okay. And I'm like hell. And I turned to Brian. I'm like, in this situation, if you try to leave me behind, I am whipping your ass. I'm not staying here. And he's like, but you're the girl. You're safer where you are. And like, yeah. But it was very a product of its time. And then she's like, okay, well, if you say I'm safer here, then I'll be safer here. Whereas today, I don't know any woman who would just be like, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, Lance's feeling was he put a lot of work into getting her into that bedroom, and he wasn't just going to let her. It's funny because thinking about him being a pilot, I've completely turned him into Quagmire from Family Guy, and I didn't even think about the fact that he's also a pilot too. So I guess that kind of makes sense. We didn't hear any giggities, but maybe there were some that we didn't catch. I don't know.
He's gonna flip a couple of buttons, and then like a bar is gonna pop down in her bedroom, and you're gonna start hearing scent. There's gonna be a circular bed. Go. Yeah, he was very manly. I keep saying that, but that's the only thing I can think of when I picture his character. Is just he was just very manly. And she was very uh, vulnerable. I think that's probably a good way to describe her. She was vulnerable.
Yeah, which, you want that, of course, in your heroine, is vulnerable. And I was trying to remember who played her part, if there was someone playing her part. I'm trying to remember, too, if Taye Diggs was technically Lance's part or if somebody else played that part. Taye Diggs, I know. But,
Alex, do you remember? I don't even remember. Apart from Jeffrey Rush, I don't remember anyone who was in the remake.
Yeah, Famke Janssen.
Oh, that was she? Because I knew she was in. Wasn't she in The Haunting too?
I don't know, but I think she was definitely here.
Okay.
And then there's some blonde girl who seems famous to me, but I don't really remember what she was in. But I think a girl who was sort of like on the uprise of her career, but it actually never went anywhere really that I know of.
Yeah,
I have no clear memory of any of those people.
the blonde was the girl who played Billy Madison's girlfriend, if you remember that one.
Oh,
Brittany
yeah,
something?
shoot. She was what is her name? She was also in Dungeons and Dragons, I think, or Mortal Kombat, one of those.
Bridget something? Bridget or
Bridget.
Brittany? Brittany or Bridget, right? There's,
Bridget. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whatever happened to her?
She married Pete Sampras, I believe, and maybe started having kids.
Oh,
That
yeah,
happens sometimes, Mr. Mr. Sampras. Yeah, there we go. There's Famke Janssen. There's Taye Diggs, Jeffrey Rush. Who else we got here? Peter Gallagher. Oh, Mr. Eyebrows himself.
That's exactly what I was about to say, Mr. Eyebrows.
The blonde, I think, was Ali Larder, actually, as opposed to
That's
but
funny because when Alex originally said the blonde who was kind of big at the time, Ali Larder was the first person that popped into my head, and I have no memory of her being in that movie, but that's the first actress that I thought of when he said that.
Mm-hmm.
Who played Elisha Cook's character? What was his name?
Chris Kattan. Chris Kattan played that part. Watson
Really?
Pritchett. Yeah, he's listed as Watson Pritchett.
Interesting.
I don't see a Lance in
Elisha
here at
Cook
all.
is
There's no
is
Lance.
another. He was a big character actor, and I always love seeing him. He always plays a great little nervous man, which is perfect for this film. But he was also the real estate guy in Rosemary's Baby who sold them the apartment in the beginning, and he's walking them around the apartment, telling them all, like, oh well, we can. I have the right to show this apartment. We can move this, and I can show it to you. That guy, and he was in a lot of like westerns and stuff back in the day. But he was a great little character actor. He always had a great screen presence, I think.
I want to say when he was younger, when he was much younger, he was in the Maltese Falcon, I believe. Elisha Cook. I'm like IMDbing it, but I'm pretty sure he was in the Maltese Falcon. He was the one who was what's his face was giving him a hard time. Like he said, he tried to. get the drop on Humphrey Bogart's character, and Humphrey Bogart said something to the effect of that's how people lose teeth, or you lose teeth that way, kid. And he kept messing with him the whole time, and he's like, you keep funding me, man, and I'm gonna do this or that to you. He was trying to be like the young tough, and of course, eventually. Humphrey Bogart had to deal with him. So yeah, he I think that was like 1941. So he was he started a while back at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen stuff where he was young, but interestingly, every time I think of him, Cook, I mean, every time I think of him, I picture him looking exactly the same. And it's like once he reached this point, like he didn't really seem to age. He always looked the same, and but he always was really nervous. He was like a little guy. He was kind of diminutive, I think. And of course, anyone next to Vincent Price was going to be a little guy. But that's just he's always just like a little rat, very nervous and rat-like. But I love it because he's terrified.
Yeah, he was fantastic. What was I going to say? Yeah, he was like, oh my god, and yeah, I mean, thinking of him, like, on IMDb they said his last role was an episode of Alf, so that's how he went out, was an episode of Alf in 1988. But yeah, so that was his last role. But you needed that character. The horror film back then needed the Elisha Cook character, where he, he's kind of a little like you said, diminutive, little creepy, but he's always warning people. He's a little bit iffy. We don't want him walking around with that knife. Put the knife down, killer, kind of thing. And then it kind of became a joke later on because he was drinking so much. Like Jen and I would joke whenever his character would walk in the room, we'd be like, "Okay, the sherry's back there," or Lance had a bottle, and I was like, "Oh, I just managed to wrestle this away from Pritchard, and I was able to bring this up for us," So at that point, he kind of just became a drunk, but he was still a lot of fun. And yeah, between him and Vincent Price, you had a lot of great moments there.
No, I love those moments, and because it's weird. Vincent Price treated him like a kook in the beginning, and then sort of gave him some like validity. He's like, "Well, why don't you show us around the house?" And it's like, "So, isn't this where this happened?" "Yeah, that's right. Right here, he strangled her, and this is someone died in every room in this house." Like he's sort of like he was a legit kind of guy. He got some respect, but at the same time, you knew he was a nut job. And it's weird because I wonder why they treated him like that. Like he was just not you know uh, a reliable source or whatever. Because the house was haunted. I mean, a lot of people did die in there, and supposedly he spent the night and was almost killed. And that's the interesting thing, because even if you go on the premise that this house, I guess, is not haunted, yeah, people did die there, but we already have explanations. The heads were put there for this person. We have no idea why a lady was gliding across the floor, but we know the doctor and the lady were in on this other thing, and he was the hand and this and that. But what's the explanation for why Pritchard, or whatever his name is, how he was almost dead in the morning when he spent the night there a couple of years ago? Like, well, what is there really ghosts there? I don't even understand.
I
If
think the impression I get of him is that he is so terrified of this place that as soon as he said it, like in the opening of the film, when he was talking about how when he spent the night there and when they found him the next morning, he was almost dead. I get the impression that he was just on the verge of killing himself, not like physically killing himself, but he was so terrified that he probably could have dropped from fear, just maybe just on the verge of a heart attack, even just because he let it get to him that much. I mean, because one of the people that had died in the house was his brother, so it was very close to home for him. And you start thinking about if you're in a situation like that and you're all alone and it's creepy, because that house is pretty creepy, um, and then it has a history. I can imagine that I would probably be huddled in a corner somewhere by the time they found me in the morning, just because you let your imagination uh, take you away. So I think he just sort of fed into his own fears. And I don't know that I necessarily think anything really happened. He probably just imagined a lot of it happening and then freaked himself out. But your impression of him was so dead on when you were
Mhm.
talking that it's like I don't know. You recently watched Rosemary's Baby. When Guy did an impression of him, That's exactly what you sounded like. When Guy was like, "And then this is the second half of the unit, and the partition was here," and then they
Mhm.
and that's immediately what I thought of because your impression and his impression were the same, and that's funny.
Yeah, it's like people who imitate Elvis all do it wrong the same way. You
Or
know.
Christopher Walken. Everybody.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I loved every character. There was almost no throwaway characters. If you had to do one, I suppose it's the old lady who got the blood on her hand. I mean, she probably had the least impact, I'd say, out of everybody here.
Yeah, she was the Shakespeare connection for the film. Is that what we were? Maybe that's what it was. We needed to have a little,
Mm.
you know, maybe they thought the Hamlet aspect of it wasn't enough, and so if that's what we could call that, with the plot to kill the husband. But yeah, I think they wanted to show their chops. The writer was like, oh, I read Shakespeare. I can do a little Macbeth in here. I'll hit, and that was
Yeah,
it.
she's muttering under her breath every time she's wiping off her hand. She's muttering, "Out, damn spot, out." Yeah. She was
Exactly.
really integral to the film because she had to be the one to stand under the blood spots all the time.
That's right, the chocolate syrup. She needed it we needed somebody to have the chocolate syrup trips. But it's interesting, yeah, because she's there, and I think one thing I think about the modern horror film that this film that this film doesn't need, and I don't think any necessarily modern horror film needs, is that she bites it in a modern horror film. You cannot be that character and survive till the end, and we joke about that. In fact, don't we? We joke that this character always dies, or this character always dies, and so in that sense, there's a level of predictability in a modern horror film that we don't get from a movie like this, because she can survive. The gambling woman with the blood or chocolate syrup on her hands, she can survive. And Mr. Pritchett, he can survive. Whereas in the new House on Haunted Hill, Chris Kattan's got to die in a horrible way. And what's her name? Whoever played the equivalent to that character also had to bite it. So I think that's the thing, is that in the movies back then, they didn't need to kill everybody off. You just needed to kill a few people, and that's plenty for us. And just have a skeleton walk around. And
Which was fantastic. That skeleton puppet moment
the,
was
the jive walk,
was
where his hands just going back and forth like he's one of those guys in the bar in Weird Science or something.
Yes, that's awesome.
And then what is she? He puts his hand on to kind of give advice, and that's how he shoves her into the pit of acid. It's like she just kind of puts the hand on the shoulder, like, let me give you a little advice. Here, it's okay. Everything's gonna be all right. Boom,
Yeah.
in you go.
Yeah, right.
I love that little. He was dancing a little jig on the way up to her. That was so great. And Brian told me his mom saw this film when it was released originally, and she said that it was terrifying. Like and she's a horror fan. Like she watches horror now, like present day stuff. And she said that when she went to see it in the theater, it was really, really scary. And I love that. I love that they had such a real impact back then. You know,
I think when I was watching it, I was trying to imagine being in a movie theater, because that's one of the things is watching it at home, watching it on the computer or whatever. You lose a little of the impact, and I think some of the things like the housekeeper, who we think is a ghost or a witch, and of course none of us have seen Psycho yet in 1959 if we're watching it in the theater. So you see that and you're just like, whoa, I mean, that would just boom, that would hit you, I think. And I think other aspects like that, seeing the dead, the woman hanging there, things like that, I think they'd have more impact in the theater, and so in that sense, I think it would be scarier. Also, the skeleton, it looks kind of funny, but I think also knowing that she's going to get shoved in the acid thing, that might be enough, to freak you out, especially if you're a younger woman or younger man watching it in 59. I think I would have been a little bit like, oh God, I don't want to go in the vat of acid.
Well, either he was going to shove her in, or she just was going to voluntarily sort of hop in, because she just walked right up to it,
yes,
and
she did.
she almost tripped. She's like, "Okay, I'm good, but I'm going to stay right here," and then just continue to scream in your face, and then whatever happens, happens, I guess. And then she was willing to just do that. I don't know why not run to a different corner, like, oh Jesus Christ, acid right behind me. Okay, hold on. Okay, and then move somewhere else. No, she's all good. She's like, I'm set. I just almost fell, but I'm good.
Well, the
I was
puppet
thinking
strings.
I was thinking the same thing when she's backing up and she's right on the edge of the acid vat and he's still coming and she's just screaming and I'm like, why don't you just step 3 feet to the side, run around it, go out of run around the thing. What are you doing?
Yeah,
And she's like,
right.
I'm just gonna fall in. That's good. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, it's clearly not an aggressive skeleton. It has no skills of really entrapment. Like
No, he's just dancing.
yeah, she's just
Do you think
she's
that
all.
the strings may have corralled her? Like that's she we didn't know that, but she was like, I can't go there. I'm going to trip over that clothesline, or maybe I don't know.
And how was Vincent Price projecting his voice? What was he using?
Ventriloquism.
Yes,
An echo effect?
yes. My third wife
Very
taught me.
talented.
Yes, you didn't know that my third wife taught me how to be a great ventriloquist.
Oh, Nora, it's time, Nora. You said you killed me, but guess what?
You wanted arsenic on the rocks? Time to take a bath, honey.
It's not that funny anymore, right? Yeah, that's just funny. But what do you guys think of, the whole thing is House on Haunted Hill. What's your opinion of this actual house? Because even growing up, I admit I never dug the look of this place. Like it looked like I don't even know, like some kind of you know,
Like an institution.
yeah,
You mean the outside?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
like a
I don't
Vegas
like it.
resort, maybe like a
Yeah, I mean,
Vegas resort casino.
what I was hoping before we see the outside. You have this picture of, well, I guess you see it like pretty much straight off, but like going into it, like you have this picture of a haunted house, like what you think of when you think of a haunted house or something mansion like, and it's very institutional. And it's very a lot of really rigid 90-degree angles, and I guess it was, modern architecture at the time. I don't know, but I never really cared for it. I
Yeah,
like the inside.
yeah. That drawing for the outside, that was what I told Jen. It looked like some kind of a Vegas casino resort, like Caesar's Palace type thing or something, or like the Luxor or something. And I think that's what's interesting. A lot of times when you get those things, you get the matte painting drawing, and who knows how that worked? Who knows if maybe they used a painting from another film, and we may never know what that film was because it may have been much more obscure. Um, you know, but or maybe in a film that never made it onto the screen, and they were just like, let's use it for this horror film with Vincent Price. But you're right; it never seemed to fit. It didn't. There's no way to figure out where people were in relation to that haunted house from the outside.
Yeah, and that's true. I never could quite get a grasp on. Now we become very intimate with the hallway and the stairwell where the body was hanging, and then where the some of the rooms are, like where Nora's room was, and Vincent Price's and his wife room. We get an idea about that, but I could never quite get a handle on the layout of the entire house because from the outside it's very expansive. I mean, it's huge. But they only ever seem to really be in certain places on the inside. And like, well, what's going on in the rest of the house? Did you not? Because there's a lot of house. There's a lot that, or at least appeared to me to be a lot of house, and I don't feel like we get to see all of that. Of course, this was a William Castle production, and he's cheap, so so I guess they did with what they had. And now, does anybody know if there was anything? Because William Castle was very gimmicky, and so like he would have you sign your death certificate when you walked in, or he would do like for the Tingler, he made the seats buzz and things like that. Was there anything for this movie?
Well, let's see
I
what
feel
the
like I
old.
should know, but I can't recall. It might just be one where you had to sign like your death certificate, or he could have had, because he would do things like have an ambulance on site with nurses on site to in case anyone passed out or had a heart attack during the f- during the viewing of the film. Which of course, I mean, you watch this now and you can't really picture that happening.
I have an answer to
But
your question. I just
oh,
went
what
to
was it? What
yeah.
was
Now
it?
before we get to this answer, the trivia above it is that of course we recognize some of the things from Psycho. Hitchcock used a lot of this film in making Psycho. He was inspired by this. And he said this led him to create his own low-budget horror film, Psycho, of course, which is one of the top films of the 20th century. But
And one of Alex's favorite movies.
yeah, one of my favorites too. I've always loved that one. But here's the answer to your question. He used a gimmick called emergo in theaters. When the skeleton rises from the vat of acid in the film, a lighted plastic skeleton on a wire appeared from a black box next to the screen to swoop over the heads of the audience. The skeleton would then be pulled back into the box as the skeleton in the film is reeled in. Many theaters soon stopped using this effect because when the local boys heard about it, they would bring slingshots to the theater. And when the skeleton started its journey, they would pull out their slingshots. Also, they could use BBs, anything they would find, they would shoot at them. So, yeah, so that's...
That's funny. But that's what I'm talking about. That's the William Castle I love right there. Is there was always a gimmick. And but I wish we had that sort of thing today. I wish that there was a way to do that for the mass market now, where people would like. I'm always thinking of like the beginning of Scream 2, where everyone's in the theater, they've got their prop costumes and knives and stuff, and everybody's going nuts in the theater. And I wish we had experiences like that where you could really be involved in it. And I guess really the closest thing is like if you go to like see A Bug's Life at Animal Kingdom or something, where it's they'll squirt some water at you um or whatever. But it's I love that interactive experience. And I think that by doing that, when people, it was a very clever marketing thing, because people would go in and they're like, oh man, I have to sign my death certificate. This is going to be really scary. I mean, so they're hyping themselves up before they even get into the movie. So they're already anticipating that it's going to be really scary because, of all they had to go through to get in it. And I think that's really, really clever. If people would, if it was a possible to take the time and the money to do something like that now, then maybe some of the more mediocre films that we go to now wouldn't seem quite so mediocre in the process.
Yeah, it seems like now instead what you get is things like Partners Hub sending emails out to us bloggers and podcasters trying to get us to buzz market big budget films for free instead of like you said, these really cool interactive features that really add to that aspect of the film. And I think part of it is maybe the big budget nature of movies in general now. It's I don't know, like let's get the biggest 3D thing and see what we can do. And it would be a lot of fun. For example, if they had a film, maybe like the new Purge or whatever they're going to make the next sequel of, if excuse me, if you had some sort of a like you said, you sign your death certificate, or remember they used to have the vomit bags, and people would collect those. I mean, how cool would that be to get your own vomit bag for the movie,
Or like even as early as late as John Waters, when there was a film that I don't remember if it was Pink Flamingos or one of his films that he released. He had lobby cards when you walked in because it was filmed in smell-o-vision, and you would at particular times in the film you would scratch off little pieces of your lobby card, and it would smell like, I mean, horrible things. It would smell like dog poo or whatever was on the screen at the time. And I mean, it was not a pleasant experience, but it still heightened it, and it sort of that sort of harkened back to the old William Castle stuff, which I love. Incidentally, and yet another Rosemary's Baby connection here. Not only was Elisha Cook in both films, but William Castle was a producer on Rosemary's Baby and wanted to direct it. And they said no. And I think rightfully so, because as much as I love William Castle, I can't imagine a William Castle version of Rosemary's Baby, because it just would not have had the same effect, I don't think. So that was kind of a close call there. But he wanted to. So there's a lot of um, a lot of integration going on. A lot of relatable things. He was in the movie, by the way, though. And I know we're not talking about Rosemary's Baby. We never stay on topic. The the guy, when Rosemary's in the phone booth making the phone call to the doctor, when she's figured out this whole plot and she's trying to call her old doctor, the old man that comes walking up to attempt to use the phone booth is William Castle, who is the person who directed this film.
And so there we
There you
go.
go. Just like a little unimportant tidbit that nobody gives a damn.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Now, I actually just kind of read myself about the house that we were talking about being horrible, me saying that maybe it was a matte painting or something. It's the Enos Brown house that was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1924. That was used for the exterior shots, which kind of makes sense because if you notice that the drive up there was a sidewalk and a railing, that it made me think maybe they were driving to some sort of historical place, and I guess this is listed. Um, on the Register of Historic Places. So he just, I guess a free place that he could go and shoot a house. He decided to go there.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, he could stand out in the street and shoot all he wanted, um, for free. So and that's a very low budget thing to do. So why not? Although I never really cared for the exterior, but
No, none of us. It didn't work for any of us. But well, we just crossed the 9 o'clock threshold. So why don't we say, like, what do we think? I think we've all kind of our thoughts, our recommendations are pretty unanimous, right? That this is a definite go. It's a definite plus, right?
for sure. Yeah, I mean, if you've never seen this one, God forbid if you've only ever seen the original, I mean the remake. Um, but if you've never seen this, check it out. I mean, I am a firm believer that, and I say it all the time, that it's important to know where we come from, and in order to understand where we've ended up. And so I think it's really important for to have a base in the classics, and they're classics for a reason, and if for no other reason than Vincent Price alone.
No. Yeah. But before I know we're gonna wrap it up. One more thing, if I could just mention one thing that just baffles me about this. So this girl Nora, she starts walking around. I guess after the window incident, and she screams down that hallway, running out. She goes down the stairs, sees the lady hanging again, screams. Sees the piano, the hand goes to grab her, screams. 3 or 4 minutes later, the doctor comes to Vincent Price's door and he's like, hey, there's either someone else in here or blah blah blah. And he goes, cause did you hear something? He goes, yeah, I heard an organ playing. Yeah, me too. And footsteps. Footsteps? You heard footsteps,
But not that shrill screaming
but
that she's
not
been doing the entire time.
right. Like, how could this line not be revived? Like, nobody. I just don't even understand.
Actually,
Like,
that's funny. Brian pointed out the same thing.
yeah, you don't hear that. You heard footsteps, but both of you, the screaming escaped both of you.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like a
and
elephant
you
in the
could hear
room.
that. Yeah, you could hear that screaming down the street.
Yeah, like maybe neither of them wanted to admit they heard it because the whole thing was that, like, the doctor and the wife were using Nora to be the killer, and Vincent Price knew they were doing that, so maybe nobody wanted to admit that they heard her screaming, and it was kind of like a goofy thing. But I think you're right. I think it was more like they added the scream scene after and realized that that line came after that part, and they like, oh, maybe we should have mentioned the scream part, but they didn't.
See, because I would think it was odd, if I was either one of those characters, I would think it was odd that the other one didn't hear it. So if they purposely don't mention it, I'd be like, huh. So I would be then automatically suspicious of one of the other. But yeah, that was a like they're right, and she's right there, running past all their rooms, screaming her
Right.
head off, right there at the stairs, screaming her head off. When the hand reached, screaming her head off again, and I'm like, yeah, I heard an organ playing. What?
Classic. Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me get that last bit in. As for the movie, yeah, I mean, sadly enough, I didn't revisit it for a while now, and I don't know why. I'm just busy with the show and just things I have to watch, things like that. Lots of TV shows trying to catch up on. So, I really, I guess I just haven't revisited for no specific reason. But today, I did for the show, and I got way into it again, man. I think it still holds up if you just focus and get into it. It's strong throughout. It's a great atmosphere. I love the inside of that house. The characters are all solid. Story moves along. I mean, some things are questionable, but it's 1958 or nine, whatever you said. So on an enjoyment level, like a Netflix rating, I give this like a 4.5 out of 5. Like I really liked it to loved it.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to say too about Netflix is that this movie has a lot of bad versions out there as far as like quality of the film and the DVD or the VHS. I actually read that on IMDb why that is. I guess the film, the copyright lapse, so anybody can put it out there that wants to. But this Netflix copy is good. This Netflix instant version is good. It's good quality, so you don't have to worry about getting a bad quality of this too. So I think it's a really great platform to be able to check this out. And like you said, it's like you both said, it's good to know where you came from. And Jen saw some classic Netflix reviewer who said this movie was crap compared to the remake. Don't
Oh
listen
my
to them.
God.
Don't listen to them. Get in there and watch this. You're going to love this.
We actually, yeah, I could never find a good format for this movie, but I believe it was just released on Blu-ray recently. It's in a Vincent Price like 10 pack or something like that.
Oh,
Oh,
was it
that's
one of
cool.
the, was it Scream Factory that did
Hmm.
the two recent Vincent Price collections?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they didn't send me the screener for that one, unfortunately. They don't really send them if they're like the big things. They just send me like the single movies or whatever. But so I didn't get that, and I'm not gonna pay $80 for the whole collection either. So, but
Yeah, but if you don't, the Netflix one, I think it does the trick, which is a good deal. But yeah, Blu-ray, I think, especially if you're a horror completist, it's something to consider because this is as good. This is a great one. It's definitely one of the greats.
Yeah, and I think it really does have some genuinely creepy moments. I mean, like I said earlier, I can't imagine people being terrified of it these days like they would have been back then. However, there are a few moments that will, like the woman, the caretaker woman, that got me. I mean, she's just suddenly right there in your face, and that's a pretty scary looking face. So, I think it works on a lot of levels.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, why don't we got a little bit of time left. Why don't we wrap up here with our usual "What have you got going on?" Segment. I might as well get mine out of the way because mine is a whole lot of nothing. I've been meaning to get a review up about Killing Season, hopefully soon. What happens is with my job is when the end of the month comes, it's just like a rush to get grades in, to pile as many classes in as I can, to get that end of the month check. So I've lapsed, but I'm gonna try to get back on that. So that's for sure. Jamie, what have you got? I know last night you had the Insomniacs playlist.
Yeah, it was the Halloween episode, and it's about 2.5 hours. I posted the Dropbox link on my Facebook and on Twitter. So I urge everyone to check it out. I played a whole lot of everything. I hit just about every genre. I even had a country song in there and things like, things that you expect, like Monster Mash and Ghostbusters, some Elvira songs, but I had some metal in there. I mean, a little bit of something for everybody. And it was all about celebrating Halloween. So that was a good time. And let's see, of course, there's this Friday on Halloween, our 100th episode of Skeleton Crew will be dropping. Currently on Devour, we're about to record our Friday 5 show, but Friday 3 and 4, those two episodes have been released now, so they're available for listening. And what else do we do? Oh, and Evil episodes. We always do our usual TV wrapping up. I did just recently, and it came out today on Horrorphilia. There's a Not So Evil episodes episode that Brian and I both guested on, where we talked about our very first memorable horror experience and the movie that sort of inducted us as horror fans. And there were four of us discussing, and it's really interesting to hear at what time period each person came in, because it was varied, and how your approach to horror then went on from that. So that was a fun show, and I guess that's about it.
cool. Yeah, I got we just released on Skeleton Crew top 10 horror movies. The three of us gave our top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. That shows, and you can find everything I'm going to say on theskeleton.crew.net. And On Banana Laser, we did we have a show coming out tomorrow called it's the name I don't really know what it's gonna be called, but it's the WNFU Halloween special. I think that's what it's called. We
WNUF.
Yeah, we did a whole review on. I can't get any name right apparently. We did a whole review on that. We talked about the origins of Halloween and just fun stuff like that. We have a few skits in there. Like Jamie said, Halloween night. We're releasing Skeleton Crew 100. It's a gigantic 8-hour show.
Epic.
Epic, gigantic. It's the best of clips, specials, like everything you can imagine. And we just released a Halloween 5 commentary about 2 days ago. So all that stuff is brand new, and you could check it out at theSkeletonCrew.net. And
I also, I'm glad you mentioned Banana Laser, because this came out, I think it was today, or was it yesterday? I think it was today. The commentary, I joined the Banana Laser guys to do a commentary on the movie Hack-O-Lantern, which is not very good, but I think the commentary will be a lot of fun. But the movie's not so hot. But
No?
but I would urge everyone to check that out, and that's at horrorphilia.com.
Perfect. Well, maybe we ought to we'll wrap things up now, because we've had a really good run here with Mixlr for the past 45 minutes, but maybe we don't want to push our luck. But I want to thank you, Alex, for coming on the show today. It was great to meet you and great to have you on.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot, man. It was a really good time. Good choice of movies, and thanks for thinking of me.
Definitely. We'll have to have you on again sometime.
Yep.
Again, as always, thank you, Jamie, for first for introducing me to Alex, and also for another great show.
Oh, I had a blast as always. And as soon as you mentioned this as our Halloween selection, Alex is the first person that popped into my mind, and I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I know I was like, what should we do for Halloween? And then when I saw this was on Instant, I said, why not go for it? Let's give it a try. I mean, we know it's not going to be bad, and I think that's what's important sometimes with a Halloween episode or a special like that.
Yeah, no, I think it worked out. I mean, if you love Halloween and you love classic horror movies, this is the show to listen to.
Yes, but yeah, a film like that is definitely, it's going to be the one. It's it's going to be up there as one of the best ones. All right, and I want to thank Brian for Jamie's bow for
his technical support.
For his technical support, his ears on the ground for us tonight, letting us know how we were doing as far as the technical stuff. So thank you for that, Brian. And a quick shout out to Jen. I love you, baby. And I'll be in the room there in a few minutes, so I'll see you in a little bit. But thank you all for listening. Again, sorry about the technical problems. You just never know, I guess, with Mixlr. But we had a good run for a few weeks there, so maybe we needed one bad one there to just kind of
my fault.
Keep us on our toes.
Keep us on our toes. I don't know if it was your fault. It was Vincent Price's fault. He didn't want us talking about this.
Yeah, he's like, hey.
Yes. But I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur. So have a great night, everyone.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
When you've had a long week and want to mix it up with something new and interesting to eat, try Blue Apron's 2 or 4 serving menu plans with those hard-to-find ingredients sure to spice up your weekend. With 60-plus options each week, you can choose from an ever-changing mix of high-quality meat, fish, vegetarian, WW recommended, and wellness offerings. Order now and get $110 off across your first 5 orders when you visit blueapron.com/unique.